So I didn't plan on making a new video this soon, but this game has taken me by surprise. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion is now my favorite mech action game of all time and is among my top 10 favorite video games of all time, period. The first Daemon X Machina game was heavily influenced by aspects of Armored Core, and I was actually very well known as a really big fan of that game. But Titanic Scion goes far beyond that and shoots for something far more ambitious, and it has honestly blown me away. Titanic Scion is basically a fusion of almost every type of mech anime and every type of mech video game. It's not just the usual Gundam, Evangelion, and Armored Core influence that you oftentimes see in the genre. It has some of those elements, but it also has aspects of more recent games like Xenoblade X, classic robot science fiction like Astro Boy, and even some slightly less obvious mech anime that we'll get into later in the video. So this game is not just mecha. In a way, I kind of sort of want to call it post-mecha, I guess. Is taking every aspect of mecha as a genre and combining it in a way that feels fresh, not just from a thematic standpoint, but also from a gameplay standpoint. And one more thing, to be clear, I don't want to call this a review. This is not a recommendation or anything. I just want to talk about why I'm so in love with this game. So look at this.
Don't get cute with me. Be careful. Take this. This might sting.
Are you kidding me? The movement in this game is crazy. It's fast and it flows seamlessly between aerial and ground combat. It's like if Zone of the Enders and Virtual On fused together and added just a little bit of the granularity that you get from something like an Armored Core when it comes to having to take your boost management and your weight into consideration when it comes to all this movement. So none of this is automated, none of these are canned animations. All of this movement is coming from me as a player. And the way that feeds into the actual combat, you know what? Let's talk about this boss fight. The name of this boss is Arachne, and she turns invisible. Not only does she turn invisible, but she also jams your radar so you can't find where she is on the map. Interestingly enough, you as a player are also able to jam her radar, but we'll talk more about that later in the video. So in order to find this boss, you have to pay attention to the sound of her voice and where her attacks are coming from in order to land a hit and turn off her invisibility. So the way I handled it, I generate a gigantic energy shield to protect myself and see where the missiles are coming from. I land my hit, turn off her invisibility, and go for the punish. The way all the mechanics come together in this game is very sick, and it lets you tackle enemies and boss fights in a lot of different ways. So you remember when I was talking about jamming radars a couple minutes ago, right? Basically, boss fights are treated like regular enemies, meaning you can paralyze them with stun grenades, poison them with hazards around the environment. You can even learn a skill that lets you drain your femtometer to temporarily turn invisible. I used this on a boss fight so I could revive a dead teammate without being seen. This isn't one of those games where bosses ignore all the mechanics. Pretty much every tool the game gives you can be used on boss characters. The game's combat also lets you use enemies against each other in a bunch of different ways, actually. Hop inside a bigger mech mid-combat Xenoblade X / Titanfall style, similar to the original game. You can deflect bullets with your sword like something straight out of an anime. Real talk, a lot of the tools this game gives you are very hype. But what also surprised me was the environmental aspect of the game. I've touched on this a little bit so far, but the game has some very interesting things going on in that aspect. First of all, there is a weather system in the game that affects your arsenal's performance. Take a look at this. Do this.
Yeah, just hit the tree.
And then it burns.
burning?
Yeah, it's burning. So, oh, and it actually, oh, so it's actually like, wow.
Yeah. Oh, you're on fire.
Yeah, no, that we're checking the mechanic. Oh, so hold on. Let's burn a tree while it's raining.
I did eat. I took a 2-hour break.
Yeah, you don't burn. You don't burn when you touch it. So the rain reduces the burn from the trees. And I've had moments in the game where this affected combat too. During this boss battle, I was firing my shoulder cannons. The explosions slowly set the trees around it on fire and ended up burning my teammates. There's several other weather conditions and environmental elements that affect exploration too, like sandstorms that blind you, acid rooms that drain your health. Flying with your boost actually drains your fuel source called femto, so you may sometimes need to stop at femto crystals to refuel, or if you want to avoid using fuel, you can ride a horse or a motorcycle that transforms into a laser cannon attachment. Some people might find those last parts random for a mech game, but there's actually a history of these types of things showing up in the genre. Fantasy-inspired mech anime like Aura Battler Dunbine had horses, and transforming motorcycle power armor has shown up in anime like Genesis Climber Mospeeda. Again, this game is a mixture of many different types of mech fiction, and it's combining all of these different influences in a way that I have not seen in a mech video game before. And the influences in this game extend even beyond the mech genre. The producer of Titanic, Scion, talks about how this game takes heavy inspiration from robot science fiction like Astro Boy. And Astro Boy was the story of a robot created by a doctor who wanted to replace his dead son, whose name was Toby. And in Titanic Scion, there's a kid robot character named Toby who is a part of the main cast. And the story behind this character is a direct tribute to the story of Astro Boy. And similar to Astro Boy, Titanic Scion's story and gameplay have a major emphasis on the choices you make in relation to your humanity and the choices you make in relation to your technology. So much so that you can remove all of your power armor and fight like a regular human, excluding your boots, which may also be a reference to Astro Boy, who is well known for wearing those tall, thigh-high boots. But okay, how does the humanity aspect tie into the gameplay? Well, in order to use a lot of those cool skills I discussed earlier in the video, you have to kill monsters, take their DNA, and fuse it with your character. The more DNA you fuse, the more skills you learn, but your character will slowly look more and more like a monster every time you fuse their DNA. Oh my, what is that? The trade-off is basically that you look uglier, and I find it super interesting that the game gives the player a cosmetic punishment that relates to the lore of the game. Your character is basically a special breed of human called an outer that has these enhanced special abilities, and these abilities let you pilot your mech in a way that regular humans can't. This concept has shown up plenty of times in mech fiction before. New types in Gundam and Human Plus in Armored Core are just some of the examples. But Titanic Scion uses the gameplay to lean into that concept harder. The abilities you learn from modifying your DNA are centered around player input as opposed to the stats-focused benefits that you get from improving your actual mech. Now, your mech stats still do matter. For example, having more memory left over affects your lock-on efficiency, your weight affects your speed and fuel efficiency, your arms affect the effectiveness of certain weapons, so on and so forth. But the DNA fusion adds an extra layer of player execution that emphasizes your ability as a pilot beyond just your mech. This is a big thing that now sets Daemon X Machina apart from Armored Core now. And without spoiling too much, This relationship between Outers and their humanity is further emphasized through the main villains of the game, the Noin. The Noin are the main bosses you fight throughout the game, and they're Outers who've gained enhanced abilities through several lab experiments and genetic mutations, and there are 9 of them, and there's a reason I'm pointing this out. The producer of Titanic, Scion, has stated that the themes of this game were heavily inspired by the work of Shotaro Ishinomori, who is the creator of the Cyborg 009 manga. And the general premise of Cyborg 009 is that 9 humans were put through experiments to become cyborgs that will be used as weapons. But these cyborgs turned against the organization that created them in order to fight evil. This may or may not be a stretch, but the Noin and Titanic Scion feel heavily inspired by the story of Cyborg 009, which further lends to this game being a giant melting pot of robot science fiction. Real talk, even beyond the literary references, the amount of secrets and mysteries this game has beneath the surface in general are really fascinating, and the more I discover, the more curious I get. There is one secret in particular that really blew my mind while I was doing co-op with my good friend Eclipse on YouTube. Just watch. Okay, so what's going on?
So this is the tower, bro. I cheated and got you up here. Well, not really cheated, but you're taxiing off of me. So we skipped the 8 hours of flight, but you can literally, like, you have to fly 8 hours to get up here.
8?
8 hours. The fastest I heard is someone got here in like 3.
What? Wait. Huh?
Yeah, bro. But the average seems to be 6 to 8 hours, real lifetime of just holding the A button.
And so this is a tower.
Yep.
What the
Yeah. We'll keep falling if we do. Like, we'll keep falling probably for a couple hours.
That is some video game shit. These kinds of secrets remind me of those weird video game rumors that would spread around through word of mouth back in the day, like the rumor that you could find Mew under a hidden truck in Pokemon or something. Except this one is actually real. This game in general has a very endearing, dare I say, 2000s gaming energy to it. And I mean that in the best way possible.
It's crazy watching you fall.
Not only that, but including this kind of over-the-top stunt in a video game encourages community participation in a very compelling way. People are already asking for taxi rides from other players who've already reached the top of this tower, since the game lets you fast travel through co-op. And my co-op experience with this game in general has been one of the most fun and engaging online co-op experiences I've had in a video game, period. The game lets you play the entire story in co-op, test things out in training mode in co-op, and you can even explore the entire map together in co-op. You can even do silly stuff like pass a soccer ball back and forth at the base. The online co-op for this game is basically what would happen if Xenoblade X fleshed out its online multiplayer to be closer to something like Phantasy Star Online. And that's the thing. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion resonates with me because it combines a bunch of things that I like into one experience. It's a fusion of all the mecha and sci-fi works that came before it, and it comes together in a very soulful way. That is why it's now my favorite mecha action game of all time. This is not a review. I just wanted to explain why I love this game so much. Comment if you have thoughts, support if you like, and subscribe to support. It's GK. Peace out.